In 1971, a man named Gerald Pruitt in Akron, Ohio, woke up at 4 in the morning 3 days a week, drove a beat-up Chevy pickup to 6 different strip mall parking lots, and spent 90 minutes walking each one with a broom and a trash bag. By the end of that year, he had collected just over $4,000 in cash from property managers who never asked to see a resume. Gerald did not have a side hustle. He had a route. And that distinction is everything. The question this video answers is simple. What did working people do before the 9-to-5 became the only story anyone told? Here is what most money channels get completely wrong about the history of side income in America. They treat it like a modern invention, something born out of apps and gig platforms and the 2008 financial crisis. But working people have been running parallel income streams since before the Civil War. Rag-and-bone men in 1880s New York, Depression-era ice delivery boys, post-war suburban lawn crews, neighborhood seamstresses in the 1960s. They did not have apps. They had resourcefulness. And the gigs they ran, the actual mechanics of them, are still available today. We just stopped talking about them. Number 1 is parking lot litter cleanup. And I want to spend a real minute on this one because it is the closest thing to a guaranteed recurring income gig on this entire list. You show up before a retail plaza opens, you walk the lot with a grabber tool and a trash bag, and you invoice the property manager at the end of the month. Cleaners and grounds workers in similar low-skill local service contracts average about $17 an hour in the United States right now. But the real advantage is not the hourly rate. It is the monthly contract. One client, one route, one recurring check. Gerald Pruitt figured that out in 1971. Number 2 is thrift store and yard sale flipping. And before you roll your eyes and say you already know about this one, I want to give you the version nobody tells you. The offline version of this hustle is over 100 years old. In the late 1800s, rag-and-bone men bought used goods door to door and resold them to scrap yards and secondhand shops. By the 1950s, garage sales and swap meets were a fixture of working-class American weekends. The marketplaces changed. The mechanics never did. Buy low locally, sell higher locally. No storefront, no employees, no startup cost beyond a few dollars and a Saturday morning. Number 3 is pet sitting and dog walking. And the historical version of this gig is worth understanding because it shows you exactly how to build it today without a single app. In 1950s and 1960s suburbia, teenagers across the country earned real pocket money feeding neighbors' cats and walking dogs while families took summer vacations. Payment was almost always cash in hand, sometimes barter. The job formalized into an actual service category in the 1980s as dual-income households became the norm. Today, U.S. pet sitters earn about $16 an hour on average, which beats a lot of entry-level retail work for tasks that amount to a daily walk and a food bowl. Number 4 is house sitting, and this one has a long, quiet history that most people have completely forgotten. In the 1960s and 1970s, before alarm systems were affordable and before neighborhood watch programs existed, leaving your house empty for 2 weeks while you drove to see family in another state was a genuine security problem. Trusted neighbors or extended family members were paid in cash, gifts, or reciprocal favors to check on the place, water the plants, and collect the mail. That informal arrangement is now a semi-formal service you can advertise by word of mouth in any neighborhood, with a homeowner population and a travel season. Number 5 is furniture flipping, and I want to separate this from general flipping because the margins are different and the sourcing strategy is different. Solid wood furniture from the 1950s through the 1980s was built to last decades. A lot of it ends up at thrift stores and estate sales priced at $10 or $20 because the person running the sale does not know what they have. A light sanding, a coat of paint, and a decent photograph can turn that $20 dresser into a $150 listing on a local buy-sell board. The skill ceiling is low. The ceiling on what you can charge is not. Number 6 is errand running and grocery pickup, and the historical version of this goes back to the Depression era when boys in every American city ran errands for local shopkeepers and elderly neighbors for nickels and dimes. The work was simple. Pick this up, drop that off, be fast and honest. By the 1970s, it had evolved into informal personal assistant work for busy households. Today the demand is the same, the population is the same, and the only thing that changed is that most people think you need an app to do it. You do not. A flyer on a community board and one satisfied customer who tells two neighbors is still a working business model. Number 7 is lawn mowing and basic yard work, and I know that sounds almost too obvious to include, but here is the angle most people miss. In the 1950s and 1960s, professional lawn services barely existed as a category. Teenagers and young men built entire summer income streams by knocking on doors in one neighborhood, getting 2 or 3 regular customers, and then working those same customers every week for the whole season. The recurring weekly payment model is the key. One customer paying $25 a week for 20 weeks is $500 from a single handshake deal. Multiply that by 8 customers, and you are looking at $4,000 in a summer without a single online listing. Number 8 is snow removal. And the reason this one belongs on a no-skill list is that the barrier to entry has always been a shovel and a willingness to be outside at 6 in the morning. In the post-war Midwest and Northeast, door-to-door snow shoveling was one of the most reliable ways a young man could build a cash income in the winter months. The modern version works the same way. You target a single block, you offer a seasonal contract to homeowners and small business owners, and you collect before the first snowfall. The upfront payment model is actually the old model. People have been doing it that way since at least the 1950s. Number 9 is car washing and detailing, and the history here is genuinely interesting. In the 1940s and 1950s, before commercial car washes were on every corner, neighborhood kids set up bucket and hose operations in driveways every Saturday morning. Some of them got smart and started charging by the week, showing up at the same house every Saturday without being asked. That consistency built trust, and trust built a customer list. The modern version of this is mobile detailing, where you bring your supplies to the customer's driveway. No storefront, no rent, no overhead beyond a few bottles of soap and a set of microfiber cloths. Number 10 is moving help and hauling, and this one is as old as the first person who owned a truck and a strong back. In the 1960s and 1970s, informal moving help was a fixture of working-class neighborhoods. A man with a pickup truck could earn a full day's wages on a Saturday helping a neighbor move furniture across town. The modern version is the same transaction. You post a simple ad, you show up with a truck or a van, and you charge by the hour or by the job. No license required, no equipment beyond what you already own, and the demand never goes away because people never stop moving. Number 11 is hand-painted signs and simple lettering work, and this one comes straight out of the pre-digital era when every small business in America needed a window sign, a sandwich board, or a banner painted by hand. In the 1970s, a woman in Tulsa, Oklahoma, made $11,000 in a single year painting signs for local businesses from her garage. No formal training, no art degree, just a steady hand and the willingness to show up. That niche still exists today at farmers markets, local shops, and small events where a handmade sign carries a warmth that a printed vinyl banner simply does not. Number 12 is junk removal and cleanup, and this hustle has a direct ancestor in the rag and bone trade of the late 1800s. Back then, men with carts would collect unwanted household items, sort them, and sell whatever had value to scrap dealers or secondhand shops. By the 1970s, that same basic operation had evolved into informal junk hauling, where a man with a truck would clear out a basement or a garage for a flat fee and then sell whatever he recovered. The modern version is identical. You charge for the removal, and then you make a second income selling what you pull out at a flea market or a yard sale. You get paid twice for the same load. Number 13 is selling at flea markets and swap meets, and I want to be precise about what this gig actually requires. It requires a table rental fee, which in the 1970s was often $1 or $2, and inventory, which you source from the same yard sales and thrift stores we already talked about. The post-war flea market circuit in America was enormous. By the early 1970s, there were thousands of active swap meets operating every weekend across the country, and many working-class families treated their booth as a genuine second income. The sourcing, the pricing, the customer conversation, all of it is learnable in a single weekend. This one got buried, but it never stopped working. Number 14 is pressure washing, and the reason this belongs on a no-skill list is that the machine does the work. In the 1980s, as residential pressure washers became affordable consumer products, a small wave of entrepreneurs figured out that their neighbors' driveways, decks, and siding were covered in years of grime, and that most homeowners would happily pay someone else to deal with it. The barrier to entry was one piece of equipment and one afternoon of practice. The business model was the same as the lawn route: one block, word of mouth, repeat customers. Today the demand is identical and the equipment is cheaper than ever. Number 15 is barter and trade coordination, which sounds abstract until you understand the Depression-era version of it. In the 1930s, entire informal barter networks operated in small American towns where cash was scarce. A carpenter would fix a dentist's porch in exchange for dental work. A seamstress would alter a grocer's wife's dress in exchange for a month of vegetables. The coordinator, the person who knew who had what and who needed what, sometimes earned a small fee from both sides of the transaction just for making the introduction. That role still exists today in any community where people trade skills and goods. Your grandparents already solved this problem. We just stopped listening. Numbers 16 through 20 move fast, so pay attention. Number 16 is selling firewood, a cash-in-hand seasonal gig that rural and semi-rural Americans have run since the colonial era. Number 17 is babysitting and childcare, which in the 1950s and 1960s was one of the most reliable sources of teenage and young adult income in any suburb, paid entirely in cash by word of mouth. Number 18 is alterations and basic sewing repairs, a skill-adjacent gig where the barrier is low and the demand from people who cannot sew a button is constant. Number 19 is selling homegrown produce, which has a documented history going back to Depression-era Victory Gardens. And number 20 is delivering local newspapers and flyers, a gig that existed for over a century before digital advertising made it less common but never eliminated it. Here is the thing that connects every single gig on this list, and I want you to sit with it for a second. Not one of them requires a degree. Not one requires a startup loan or $1,000 in equipment. Not one requires you to build an audience online or learn a piece of software. Every single one of them was built on the same three things that working people have always had: a willingness to show up, a reputation for being reliable, and the patience to let word of mouth do the selling. The system did not hand these people income. They built it themselves, one customer at a time, one handshake at a time. That is the actual lesson. If you made it this far, you are exactly the kind of person this channel exists for. Pick one gig from this list, just one, and test it this month. Not next month. This month. Write it down, figure out your first 3 potential customers, and make one ask. That is the whole plan. Old hustle, new money. If you want more of this, the video on Depression-era income strategies that most Americans have completely forgotten is right up there, and it goes even deeper into the mechanics. Hit subscribe if you want to keep digging. I will see you in the next one.